Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX141 Walsh, welcoming you to an all new World of Warships gameplay today on our channel. In this episode we shall be sailing out in our newly acquired Tier 7 American premium destroyer known as the Sims in a Tier 8 domination game on the map Two Brothers. We are not alone today but joined by our two good friends Callum and Z, who are respectively sailing out in the Pensacola and Kaga. Now as we make our way westwards towards Objective Alpha using our speed boost, what's the point of this video? Well, it's for me to give my first impressions on The Sims, as I managed to obtain the ship for a promotional offer a couple of weeks ago, and to give you an idea of how much I spent, it was 22 Great British pounds for the ship, a week of premium and 1,000 doubloons. Now I'm going to point out before providing these first impressions, I am technically quite biased because I'm a big fan of American destroyers and game in general. But where possible I will try to be objective and talk about the strengths and weaknesses. Apologies in advance. Let's talk about speed. The Sims is fast, and this really caught me by surprise. A top speed straightaway of 38.5 knots. With speed boost, that goes up to 41.5 knots. That means, as you're seeing right here, you can cover a ludicrous amount of ground very quickly. Not Russian level, i.e. the Minsk at Tier 7, which can go more towards 43 knots from what I recall, but you've got a very good top speed. And as a result, that means you can get into positions very early on and catch your foes by surprise. And as we can see, because we started off in the centre of our team's southern spawn, we are going to get to Alpha at roughly the same time as our Tier 6 German destroyer, the Gator. And that means we can begin to get into a forward position and provide scouting for our team, and essentially enable our team to push forward faster than the enemy team may anticipate. And what you can see on the minimap right now, and what I'm thinking to myself is, this is a game of two snowballs, whereby both teams are rotating clockwise around the map or sending their main force in that direction, and it's who can roll around the map and encircle the enemy team the fastest. And the reason I use the snowball analogy is because if you've seen a number of cartoons of the snowball rolling down the snowy hill, you'll know that it starts off really small to begin with, and as it rolls down the hill it builds up layers of snow on it, and it becomes big, becomes massive, and in the end it's an unstoppable juggernaut of force until it hits a solid brick wall. And that's the idea of our team. We're going to build up momentum, and we're going to be one of the destroyers at the front to make sure that momentum build is not stopped at any point. And we can see here how we have 3 battleships coming our way with us. The Torpedo, the Fusa and North Carolina. We've got Z's carrier, we've got the Pensacola, and we've also got 2 other destroyers along with our own, the Gator and the Akatsuki. Now having got into this forward position and taken Alpha, let's talk a little bit about the torpedoes, one of the more controversial points and the debatable points about the Sims. As we're going to see, we're going to use them against a grass bay who's completely out of position and probably didn't want to get spotted right here. Well, we're using the longer range torpedoes. They do less damage, they're slower, but they do have a 9.2 kilometre range compared to the 5.5 kilometre range torpedoes, the shorter range, higher velocity, higher damage ones. Now the interesting thing about these torpedoes, with their top speed of 49 knots, you may be wondering, well that means they take aeons to get to any target. So you're going to need to think about where your foe is going to go, or fire them from a position where your foe is not going to anticipate torpedoes striking them, trying to play on their ignorance. But what's nice about these torpedoes is the fact that by the time they've run out of fuel, i.e. when they reach their maximum range, they're ready to go again. Your 2 quadruple mounts have a 72-second reload, which times perfectly with the maximum range of your torpedoes, meaning that you can send out this endless war of torpedoes over the course of a game. Something that really took me by surprise. Now in terms of damage, they only do 8,500 damage per torpedo hit maximum, which means these are not torpedoes based around alpha strike damage, compared to the majority of the torpedoes you'll see at your tier and even at lower tiers. But instead the logic is you hit with 1 or 2, cause flooding, and then you can begin to build up your bleed damage through the flooding. And whilst you're waiting for the torpedoes to get there, you can use your 4 5-inch guns, or the 127mm, the single firing ones, to cause fire on your foes, whereby firing high explosive shells you have a 5% fire chance. And one other thing to note is these torpedoes are very hard to detect as standard, with a 1 kilometre detectability at sea, meaning they can really catch foes by surprise. They may be slow, but they're not to be underestimated perhaps. And a number of times I have caught foes off guard, and that grass bay would have been an example if our North Carolina hadn't have sunk it, but good shooting to them, whereby the grass bay would have taken at least 2 of those torpedoes. Now coming back to the guns, your main armament, they have the rainbow shell arcs that you're used to with your American destroyers, meaning that at the longer ranges, and your maximum range as standard is 12.9 kilometres, You're only going to be hitting the sliced and least manoeuvrable of ships, i.e. the massive battleships, unless you're very good at predicting your foe's path and predicting the lead you need to give. And with your 792 meters per second muzzle velocity on all types of shell, you're going to see the shells become very slow at the peak of their trajectory and as they're gradually dropping onto the target. So these guns are perhaps more ideal for close to mid-range, i.e. 7 kilometers or less. And with your concealment, with Concealment Expert in your captain skill slots, bring your concealment up to a point whereby you have a detectability by sea of 6.6 kilometers and at air 3.3 kilometers. You can get quite close to your foes, especially enemy destroyers, to get into a knife fighting position. And using your speed boost as well, that means you can very quickly cover the ground that the stealthier Japanese destroyers will use to try and stay away from you and keep you spotted whilst you don't spot them. So you can always use your speed and concealment in your favour and make yourself a very effective destroyer hunter. And with our guns having a 3-second reload thanks to basic firing training and a rotation time for 180 degrees of only 5.3 seconds, they're never not going to be loaded and they're never not going to be pointing at the right target. Meaning that you can acquire targets on the fly and you don't have to worry about being ambushed per se. Now here what we're going to show is one of the hidden traits of the Sims, its ability to decelerate. Because think about it. This thing comes with a stock rudder shift of 2.7 seconds, meaning there's not really a need for you to mount the rudder shift upgrade mod. Instead, if you go with propulsion, what you can do is decelerate and accelerate the ship very quickly. And in turn, if you ever feel the need to throw down smoke for yourself, to hide yourself, you can be rolling along at full speed as we were doing there, and then just suddenly slam on the brakes and deploy your smoke screen, and very quickly you'll drop below the quarter line of your speed in order to become concealed in your own smoke as you're laying it. Very effective tool to get out of those difficult situations perhaps, or if you just very quickly need to change up your speed. Going forwards and then backwards, and we'll see that a little bit later. The idea of throwing off people's aim through backwards and forwards motion. But in the meantime, with a massive vape cloud in the middle of the map here, we're going to poke it with our torpedoes, and we can see that it's an enemy Japanese destroyer with 3 triple sets, most likely their enemy Fubuki, and we're hoping they're staying in the middle of that smoke screen. They don't seem to have anywhere to go, and we're going to catch them from behind, as that smoke screen either dissipates or we get close enough. And we soon catch on to the fact it is the enemy Fubuki. We hit them with 1 torpedo, knocking out roughly half of their health, and we can see the minimal damage being done there by our torpedoes. But in the end, throwing in a few more shells, we take them out for our first kill of the game. Enemy destroyer eliminated, and here we slam ourselves into reverse, very quickly changing the motion of our ship, the acceleration mod coming in handy. And we're now in a prime position to just sit here and either react to any changes up north or any changes down south, as the enemy team has now split into 2. Whilst we're waiting to see what happens, what else can we talk about? Well, on top of everything we said, you've got a respectable health pool of 13,800. Now, I do intend to take Survivability Expert to buff that out a little bit further, head towards the 16,000 HP mark, ideal for destroyer hunting once again, but you've got a good amount of health. And with a rather low profile towards the back end of the ship, it can dodge a good number of shells. Not going to be demonstrated here, but that's my experience. And here very quickly we see that an enemy Kagero has decided to charge into Bravo. And slamming on the speed boost mod and using our propulsion mod, we very quickly come to a standstill and go into reverse. And this is how quickly we can react to changing circumstances on the other side of the map or behind us. Our guns are already rotated towards the target and we can start to lay some fire on the enemy Kagero. And we can see here, as we start to go out to those more moderate ranges, 6 kilometers, 7 kilometers, we begin to have to try and guess the lead a little bit more. It's not as easy, we have to provide ample chunks of lead, although the Kagero's propulsion being knocked out. As a result, we can start to bring the lead we're providing in a little bit and pick them off gradually. We're about to collide to a landmass in front of us, but we can just slam on the stop. I slam on the brakes, and the enemy Kagero falls to our North Carolina secondaries. And here we very quickly notice an enemy destroyer coming up the other side of us. They're in a smoke screen on Charlie, and we just rotate our guns automatically, and we throw our torpedoes down. And we get the feeling that perhaps we've got torpedoes coming towards us, but we're just going to reverse out of the way. And the enemy mass, by looks of things, decides to push forward out of the smoke. And here we can just toss in shell after shell towards them, reset them on the cap. And note here in the bottom left hand corner of your screen what we're doing. We're constantly changing up whether we're accelerating or decelerating, and this is to throw off the mass's aim as much as possible. And what you will notice is the fact they are missing a significant number of shells. Perhaps they're not anticipating our forwards and backwards motion. which can be very irritating and something that can catch people off guard. And therefore we're dodging shell after shell here, as that mass is gradually falling under a sustained fire. And that's them out of the game for our second kill. So you have a number of tools available for dodging shells. Your rudder shift, and your ability to accelerate and decelerate in a very nice fashion. And notice, having fired our torpedoes, they're almost at the end of our range. 10 seconds and we've got another set ready. And now with the two new battleships, the Bismarck and the New Mexico, pushing around onto Charlie, we're ready to fire our torpedoes again. And we'll aim them towards the New Mexico and hopefully catch them off guard, as finally our torpedoes run out of range. The perfect example of what we were talking about earlier. As we fire off our second set, just as the previous torpedoes from that tube set ran out of range. And now we can just wait to see whether the New Mexico will drift into them. And in the meantime, the enemy Farragut pushes towards Bravo, and we decide to just slam on the accelerator and go to cut them off. And as a result, the ship is very reactive, whereby you can very quickly spot something going on somewhere else on the map, and you can use your speed in order to get there. Or if it's a little bit further away and you don't want to get spotted, you can use your torpedoes to try and create a bit of a harassment screen. And we're not going to look at those torpedoes we fired earlier towards that New Mexico. We'll just wait and see if we get any hits. The idea is just simply to push the New Mexico and Bismarck away from the objective. As our team's pretty much got this under control, we're 950 points in versus the enemy team's 400. There's no way we're losing this now. Well, he says a very low chance of losing this. As we start to rain in some accurate fire on the Farragut, we score 2 torpedo hits on the New Mexico and cause some flooding. And we continue to drop in shells on this Farragut. But get the feeling we're probably not going to finish it off. Someone's going to finish it off on our team. In fact, that's the game over. Time to take a look at the post-game stats. A rather comfortable victory in the end. We can see that our battle performance consisted of 48,923 HP of damage, and in terms of ribbons, 58 target hits for our main batteries, 3 target hits for our torpedoes, 6 incapacitations, 2 enemy ships destroyed, 2 fires set, 3 floods caused, 5 base defend ribbons, and 2 assisted captures. Looking at the team scores, we can see that we picked up a base experience tally of 2,428, placing us first on our team. Our main contributions in this match were supporting our team as we pushed through onto multiple objectives, whereby we secured 2 caps for our team. On top of that, we also made sure to hunt the enemy destroyers where possible, contributing a significant chunk of damage to all 4 of the enemy destroyers. Coming on to our detailed report, we can see our role of destroyer hunter being reflected here, whereby the majority of our damage was made up on the enemy destroyers, i.e. the 4 of them, including the full health takedown of a stock enemy mass, and almost taking all the health off the enemy Fubuki. And finally, coming on to our credits and experience earned, we can see that after additions and deductions, we walked away with a rather nice 301,198 silver credits and 7,284 captain experience. Great for training up our Mahan commander who's in this ship. To conclude, as far as first impressions go, The Sims has left a positive one on me, whereby she seems to sit in the middle between the Tier 7 Mahan and the Tier 8 Benson, absorbing qualities from both ships. From the Mahan, she takes the slow, long-range torpedoes with a low overall alpha, but these torpedoes are not to be underestimated thanks to their low detectability range at sea of only 1 kilometre, meaning she can catch out battleships very nicely. On the other side of the coin, looking towards the Benson, she takes the Maneuverability and the artillery pieces, being very quick not only in a straight line, but in terms of her ability to shift her aft from left to right. And then in terms of the artillery pieces, you've got very fast firing guns, which can quickly acquire targets, meaning you can never really be ambushed in this ship as such. You always have your guns pointing towards the foe. Albeit her guns are restricted in range thanks to the rainbow shell arcs, making them ideal for shorter to medium ranges, i.e. 7 kilometres or less. And then right in the middle, she has the concealment, which is significantly less than the Mahan, but nowhere near that of the Benson if the Benson goes for a full concealment setup, whereby she has both concealment expert on her captain and the concealment module. But her concealment is nice and enables her to get close enough in order to hunt down enemy destroyers and get into favourable frontline positions, and that's exactly what we saw today. Therefore, she makes a worthy investment. And so I've been TX141. And if you have enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future World of Warships videos on my channel. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and fair seas.